and gentlemen, it's March 28th, 2017. Pretty hard to believe, isn't it? Great number of things going on, and I'm just going to take a couple of minutes and actually give a thank you to a couple of people here and encourage you to go look at their work. There's so many out there. You know, when you first start this, you feel alone, and then you start getting together with other people, whether it's in person or over the web. And over the web, of course, is the reason why they want to censor everything, is so that we can stop passing this information on. I did want to address what has been called Pizzagate. And people are shying away from that now, and probably for good reason. Pizzagate was the diversion. That whole thing with Comet Pizza and all that was a diversion to change the subject, to get us off the real track. The real track, of course, is major pedophile rings, wherever they meet, and the influence that they sway in government and in corporations, nationally, internationally, locally, everywhere. It's really quite incredible. I understand those who want to pull away from the specific pizza parlor, so to speak. I understand that. It really shouldn't have gone there in the first place, even though that there were some, when you look at some of the videos about some of those places and what they do in there, some of the entertainment and all of that, it doesn't leave much to the imagination. But it's also dangerous to get pulled off into a specific when there's so much information elsewhere, and of course in the most likely the Wiener laptop 650,000 emails that we've asked the NYPD and our different representatives to get into. We've asked them to release it to the public. A lot of us have asked that, but understandably some of it's classified, and so I doubt that that will happen. But merely because it mentions, these things might mention names of parties in the government and corporations, etc., should not in itself make them classified. That should point the finger at those people, rightly so, just like any criminal. When they're arrested on the street for something, their name might appear in the newspapers, and they'll say alleged or will be charged, or those types of things. They could be the same way for this, but of course we know that the security apparatus, the intelligence apparatus, has been used to protect the guilty. That's really what it's about, under the cloak of national security, and I think we all realize that. And in that vein, I would like to thank George Webb for the work he's doing. Like a thanks for me means a whole lot, but it does, even though I don't refer to him much, and I'm going to explain the reason why here in a minute. And I also had someone send me a link to a YouTube video. The link is in the description box below, and it's by a Tracy D on YouTube. It's called the Montgomery Breakdown. Wow, excellent job, Tracy. I was very impressed with your delivery. You stayed calm. Most people that watch my channel know that I usually lose my temper or get upset, and I didn't used to do that. I used to have professionalism in my job, but of course now that requirement doesn't really exist, so I can get flustered, and I definitely show it. But I just wanted to thank you for the delivery that you made there and how excellent it all was. And there are a lot of people out there that are doing the same thing, picking different parts of this entire war upon mankind. For instance, the chemtrails that Pam Jones shows on her channel. And I could go on, but I just wanted to bring those things up really quick. One thing about criminal surveillance, surveillance by the government, that I think everybody understands, but I want to bring it home to you, is this: that when you're engaged in criminal conduct, and there are people in the Department of Justice, in the FBI, in the White House now, and certain senators and congressmen, people like that, who have not sold out to the system, and they all have to a certain extent, but I'm talking about in really nefarious, bad ways. When they haven't done that, these surveillance tools by the state can be used to gather information on them that they can use for blackmail. Not necessarily that you do anything wrong, right? It might be in your personal life with your wife, you know, very, very simple things. Sex is often used as a tool to blackmail people. Often, of course, as are investments. Isn't it interesting that Podesta's investments in Russia and Clinton's as well are being suppressed by the media, but all these things that are done to Trump and his team or by them come out in the open. And they're not wrongdoings. It was encouraged after the Soviet Union fell for American businesses to get involved in Russia. So this is all a red herring, real stupidity. It's finger pointing by the guilty to take attention off themselves, and I think we all understand that. But at any rate, so these intelligence agencies, and this is where I disagree with Dr. Perchinik all of the time, is on this surveillance issue. Hopefully it's tongue-in-cheek to some extent by him, but not always, obviously, as we can see. But the point is this: they can use these things to, first of all, blackmail those who threaten their power. I'm talking about the intelligence agencies or the continuity of government state, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But there's another aspect. And we saw that in the Senate wiretapping a few years ago, where the CIA was checking on what the Senate was doing, purportedly because they were worried about their funding. Whatever. If you know that somebody's going to criminally investigate you, you can take actions to avoid that, or to make it so that they either go off on another course or they fail to altogether. So that's the real problem with the secret society, and I'm going to call it that, a secret society in our government, and there are many of them, but the intelligence community is certainly one of the most serious, if not the most dangerous. This was all discussed back in the 1800s about these secret societies, and we get pulled off on the Rothschilds and the Masons and the Zionists and things like that, and everybody has their own little thing that they dislike and they want to jab at it. It is in the nature of evil men, and women for that matter, to take advantage of tools of power, okay, regardless of who they are or who they work for. And the intelligence communities, even though they were first built by the banks, the CIA, were built by the banks and the lawyers of Wall Street, etc., the British intelligence, all those people to do with economics and colonialism and all of that. And yes, they have influences by all these different groups we could name, which I'm not going to do here because then you get off on a tangent. All men will misuse authority that they're given at some point in time. It's in their nature, and that's why the Constitution, to chain those things, to prevent that from happening, was such an innovation and so important. I'm not going to go into it any deeper than that, other than to say that this whole thing with the wiretapping of Trump and then the releasing, the unmasking of all of that with his people and all that, is obviously an attempt, and this is where I'm going with this, by what's called the continuity of government to retain power, because the people voted to have a populist giving the power back to the people and put him in the White House. And of course we've seen it across the country in Senate seats and in Congress seats and all of that. But this COG, this shadow government, and that's really what it is, and there are different aspects of it, but this one is very powerful, and it seeks to retain its power and seize it back from the people who are telling it that it has to get back into its proper place, which is defending the Republic, not their agenda, but the Republic and the people of the United States of America. And of course they don't want to do that because there's power involved, there's money involved, there's the survival at the apocalypse, all kinds of aspects of this. So the next thing I want to refer to is Kit Daniels' article in InfoWars, and I don't have the link below, but you can go look for it. It is about the continuity of government. I just want to quote just a sentence from his article there, and this is what it says, actually a part of a sentence. Quote, "The shadow government has expanded its continuity of government powers to ensure its survival. In this case, amid a populist revolt that transferred power back to the people." Now understand, the first reason to have this COG was in case, you know, there was a big war and Washington, D.C. gets nuked or whatever, and the government could continue on continuity of government from another location or a number of locations. Now, if the purpose of that is to maintain the principles of the Constitution and the lives and liberties of the American people, that's one thing. But that's not what it's turned into now. It's about protecting that small group of elite. Even the COG people themselves, and I'm not going to go into the structure of how all that works right now, because it's really not the way they present it on different media that you can find about it, okay? It's really much more sinister than that. So I wanted to just touch those few things today and bring them up to you so that you could be aware of them. Again, I understand that there are just so many people out there who are trying to get this information out, and of course the leftist Marxists and the Democrats and the powers that be generally are fighting with everything they've got, and it's going to get worse. We saw armed, they call themselves anarchists, I guess, but they were definitely leftist Marxists down in Phoenix, showing arms. Interestingly, I was looking at that as compared to Bundy Ranch. You know, Bundy Ranch was a stand against the tyranny of government, and these people are standing for the implementation of tyrannical power, these anarchists and leftist Marxists. It's their nature. Totally different set of circumstances, and I hope law enforcement and people that are awake start to see this. I think they are, and that's a good thing. But this is going to get worse. It's of course being promulgated by Obama and Soros and basically leftist Marxists and the powers that be across the world, and we're going to see more of it. They have endless funds to use to do these things, and they're going to get nastier as time goes on, as I've said constantly. Alright, we'll just leave it there for now. As I've said before, make sure that you're prepared with supplies and ammunition and first aid and a place to go, and most importantly, people that you can trust. It's going to be more important as time goes on that you do that. Keep your eyes on this COG thing and all of this that they're trying to do with accusing Trump of being a Russian agent, and all of us who support what he is trying to do. Be aware of that, because this is inherently dangerous in and of itself. Will they succeed? Well, Dr. Pachinik says that Nancy Pelosi is irrelevant, Maxine Waters is irrelevant, etc., etc. But in fact, and I understand why he says that, but in fact, I wouldn't underestimate the enemy to liberty. Not here.